All right, let's see, we're getting some participants coming in. Hey, David. No, it's the same one. I had to log out real quick so I can share the screen. We're back in now. I have to email it to you. Okay, bye. All right, getting started in just a second here. As people are starting to come in. Sorry for the delay there. We had a technical difficulty. We're going to get started in just a second. Okay, so just want to make sure that we can all see. We'll be able to comment on this as well. What is happening? Okay. Looks like we have a lot of people showing up, and we can, let's see, go live on Facebook too. Sorry, folks, we're just having a little bit of technical difficulty, but it looks like we're getting there now. Just bear with us 1 second if you could. Okay, that works. Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Sorry about that temporary delay there as more people kind of filter in. This is the Lawyer in Blue Jeans group. We are going to be discussing estate planning and how to protect your estate from the government. We're going to go over quite a bit of information today too. We're going to be doing some Q&A at the end. You'll be able to ask questions. It's also live streaming on Facebook if you're seeing it there too. Please make sure to share it or like it so more people can see it as well, because it's a lot of good information that we need to get out to a lot of people who just don't know. Many people think that a will is sufficient nowadays, and it's not. And we're going to talk about why that is, and some other things as well, as far as how to plan, how to protect, and how to make sure everything that you have goes to your family instead of to the courts. So let's start it off. I'm going to come back in a little bit. My name is Justin Isaac, by the way. The Lawyer in Blue Jeans, Jeff Isaac, is going to be coming on in just a second. Yes, we are related. But he's going to be talking for a little while, and I'll be coming back to discuss some things with you as well. So we're going to kind of go back and forth, and we will do questions at the end, like I mentioned. So without further ado, Lawyer in Blue Jeans is going to come sit in.
All right. Shifting of the chairs. Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well out there. Tough times, we all know that. And I know I want to mention Memorial Day, and that's, you know, it's an important day. And it's the kind of thing that hopefully people reflected. I was in Vietnam in 1968 at the Tet Offensive, and I lost some friends there. And I will tell you, it's important. In this time of our crisis that we have in our country, I think it's important even more so that we reflect and we think about what's important in our world. And usually that's friends and family. And we are going to touch on that. Now, we are live. This is not something taped and I'm right here with you at what time is it? A little after 8 or something like that. And it's Tuesday. And we are live, and we're going to be about an hour. We're going to give you more information. Please try to stay with us, all right? This is important stuff, and I really know you're going to get a lot out of it. So it's pretty important that, now let me see. I can't get this going. Justin, I need you. Already? Yeah, well, I can't get this stuff moving. So hold on a second, guys.
Okay, press it.
All right, got it. All right, now see the tech stuff is not my cup of tea. How to protect yourself and your family from probate, from government, from control. How would you like to be in charge of your own family instead of the government constantly being in charge? That's the key. So let's start with this. Now, I've been on radio for 25 years. TV is the same. I started with KFMB radio. For 20 straight years, virtually. I was on Kogo for a little while as well. Also on KFMB Channel 8 for 6 years. I was on KUSI for over 6 years, 5 times a week. And a lot of you might have seen me on Channel 6 as well until they kind of went out of business. Other than that, I've been on CNN and MSNBC and Fox and Friends and the Today Show, and I've written a bunch of books. I've been in the Judge Advocate General's office. And that's for those of you who might say, who is this dude called the lawyer in blue jeans, all right? I'm in my Hawaiian shirt, by the way, having fun as well. All right, so do you think we're over-lawyered in our country? Do you think we have too many people? Well, the reality is we have 500,000 new laws every year. We have 2 million new regulations every year, and we have 12 lawsuits filed every minute, just in Southern California alone. We sue people. That's what we do as lawyers. That's what we do as citizens. And quite frankly, it's probably the best system in the world, but still we could do better. We could communicate better and not have to worry so much about all these lawsuits. But, it's still better than most systems that we see in the world. Today and tonight, it's about family and friends and people we care about, charities, things that are important to us. This happens to be my family a couple of years ago in a crazy picture that we had. I have 5 kids. I have 6.5 grandchildren. We are expecting another one in a month or so. And quite frankly, that happens. So you can see Justin over on the corner there with my son-in-law, and he looks a little bit lost, but whatever. Bottom line is we care about our people that we care about, and we need to show them, not just talk about it. We need to do things about it, and that's what we're going to be doing. And by the way, yes, when you hear a lawyer talking about estate planning, it doesn't have to be boring. It's not going to be. If you hear me on radio and TV, I talk wacky laws. I wrote the book on it called The Wacky World of Laws. And we do have some fun, but we will be serious as well, because quite frankly, you need now more than ever to know how this stuff works. So how many of you have planned your estate out there? Raise your hand. I can't see you, but I know most of you are raising your hands. It means you've done nothing, right? Well, for those of you who raise your hand, or maybe virtually raise your hand, the reality is that all of you have planned your estate. Even those of you who virtually raise your hand and have nothing, you have planned your estate. So the reality is how does that work? I've done nothing, but I plan my estate. Well, yeah, here's how it works. There's only so many ways that you can plan your estate. And for those of you who have done nothing, which is the majority of people in California, you're going to intestate succession. You're going to probate. You're going to the government, and the government's going to grab you and hold you for years. We're going to talk about that. And by the way, you have no say of where your stuff goes. And I need you to hear that loud and clear. When you die and you've done nothing, the government will dictate who gets your stuff. Not your spouse, not automatically, not your kids automatically. It goes through the government and they make a decision. It could go to your brother, it could go to your uncle, it could go to your parents. There's lots of ways it could go. It's called intestate succession, intestacy. Those are legal terms for you have no control, you're out of luck. It might go to your parent, or it might go to your spouse, it might go to your kids, but might is not a word I like to use as a lawyer. Now, there's other ways to plan your estate as well. They don't get any better, for at least the ones we're going to show you initially. And that's, some of you have a will. And you go, oh, a will is good enough. Well, guess what? A will still goes to probate, which is the worst court we have, but you do have a choice with a will. You can say, I want my kids, I want my dog, I want my spouse to get my stuff. The courts will generally honor that down the road, but it takes a lot of time, and wills are not like they used to be. They're just not the kind of way to plan your estate. So you got do nothing, you have no control. You got a will, you got a little control, but you're going to be stuck in probate forever. What else? Well, some of you own homes. And when you own a home, most people in California, especially if you're coupled, own that house in joint tenancy. That's right of survivorship. Oh, automatically when I die, it's going to go to my spouse. No, it's not. That's a big fallacy. I'm going to prove that to you. And by the way, in just about 2 minutes, you're going to see why joint tenancy, and many of you have it, you need to get out now. It doesn't work. I'll prove that in a minute. We're going to come right back to that. But there's a couple other ways some of you have planned your estate or thought about it, and that's beneficiary transfers. That's your 401k, your savings account, your insurance policy. You put a beneficiary on. Automatically, that's going to go right to that person or people when you die, right? No, it might. Again, might is not a word I like to use because, you might go to Las Vegas with $100 and come back with $1 million, but probably not. So beneficiaries are not necessarily the way to go as well. So these are really fallacies. These are things that people think, oh, I got it. I know how to take care of my family. Well, not using those techniques. That's not how you take care of your family. That's taking your family down the trapdoor of government. And there's one more. You can give money away. You can give up to $15,000 a year per person to as many people as you want. What a great way to beat the system. What a great way to avoid probate. You won't have any money. Well, you'll be homeless, maybe. Or, the bottom line is it doesn't work because you can't and don't want to give all your money away and then be homeless. You can give gifts without a tax. That's great. But the reality is it doesn't work. It's the kind of thing that if you ask your kids to give it back, forget about it because, it's a gift and it's a present. So let's talk about that joint tenancy thing. And again, I want to push through this because I know some of you haven't eaten yet or you have big plans tonight at the local bar. So let's talk about joint tenancy. Well, we got a scenario here. We got Jake and Jan. They're married. They purchased a small home for $400,000. They're told, hey, the best way to title that home is in joint tenancy. Well, this provides right of survivorship, and they're told that the survivor would inherit the house free of probate. Look in the mirror, folks, because many of you are in that scenario. Well, Jake is 6 years older than Jan. Why do I say that? Well, us guys die 6 years before women statistically. So guess what? Jake has to die. Jake dies. What happens to the property? They're in joint tenancy. Does Jan get the property free of probate? Well, you need to know a law, one of many we're going to talk about, and the law in California says the following, that if you own property in the state of California and you die and it's in your name, you must be probated. Not you personally, you'll be gone, but your estate will go to probate. Now, here's the deal. So when Jake dies, does Jan get the house? Well, the reality is that Jan and Jake are joint tenants. It's a little different. It's not in their name only, it's in joint tenants. So in this case, temporarily, it might beat the system. But does it really? Does it beat the system? No, because when it goes to Jan, Jake dies, goes to Jan, there's no more joint tenancy. It's now in Jan's name. I hope you're with me. I hope you stay with me on this. Jan owns the house. It's titled in her name. What's the California law that I just told you? It must be probated. It never, ever, ever avoids probate in this scenario. It only prolongs the process a bit, and it always ends up the same way, and that is the P word, probate. It's not a good thing. So joint tenancy doesn't work. Now, some of you might be saying, well, yeah, right, maybe. Okay, no, I'm a lawyer. I've been a lawyer for 45 years. I do understand this stuff. Let me bring Jake back to life. He comes back to life, but in this scenario, Jake and Jan have a 2-year-old child. They are in joint tenancy like before, but Jake has to die because he's still 6 years older than Jan. So the baby has no dad, and Jan has no husband. Sad stuff, right? Well, what happens? All right, after about a year, Jan says, I need to get our life back together. I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to go to Tahiti. I'm going to hang out a little bit, clear my head, come back, and we got to go on with life. So Jan goes to Tahiti. Wouldn't that be nice nowadays? Well, you know, I'm not getting on a plane anytime soon. I don't know about you guys. But she's in Tahiti. No, she's not seen Survivor. I mean, they're already done. And bottom line is, who does she meet in Tahiti? She meets Macho Man. She marries Macho Man. She puts him on as a joint tenant on the house she had with her prior husband, her deceased husband. The question, what, that she should have asked Macho Man is simply this. Macho, how old are you? Macho's 7 years younger than Jan. You know where we're going. Statistically now, who has to die? Jan. Jan dies. What happens to the property that Jan and Macho Man had together? Now we got a situation where Macho Man gets the house and the baby gets nothing. Joint tenancy doesn't work. You're probably in it. Most Californians are in it. Get out. It doesn't work. All right. Last one on just to prove the point on the story of Jack and Jill, a little different, not the nursery rhyme though, okay? So we have Jack and Jill, they buy their house in 60 for 30,000 bucks. They made $20,000 in improvements. Jack died in 96 and now the house value was $400,000. She's now selling the house. How much capital gains tax is going to be due if she sells a house for $650,000? Well, take a look at this, folks. If it was titled in joint tenancy, Jill's taxable capital gain will be about $175,000. Yeah, thank you, Congress. That's the deal, right? That's the law. $175,000. What if they owned it in a living trust? Oh, first time we've talked about it, not the last. And that living trust, as you'll see, as we evolve it, is going to be something that's going to be in your brain all night tonight. I guarantee you, you'll be thinking about this. But if they were in the living trust, they titled their house in that, not in joint tenancy, take a look what happens. Zero capital gains tax. Zero. And by the way, you get a full step up in cost basis. That's how you get to a zero with a living trust. It applies to all properties that are in that trust. You could have 10 properties. Just think how much money your family will save, and there's no capital gains tax. And by the way, it applies to stock. It applies to anything that has a capital gains situation to it. This is big time stuff. Now you might be saying, why? What's going on here? Well, you need to understand what happened. We got our laws way back when from England, all right? It's called common law. You've heard of that before, I'm sure. Common law. Now, living trusts were part of that. It came across the Atlantic Ocean, and it landed on our East Coast, and Congress started messing with it. And right away, you're going like, oh, God, here we go again. No. What they did was they said, they literally rubbed their hands and said, let's go. And what they did was they decided to basically fill the refrigerator with everything that's good in this bill on living trust. They wanted to take advantage of it. No, they weren't going to tell you about it. Why? Why would they tell you about it? They're using it. You'll see as we progress forward how they have used it, and you too can use it. I have a trust. Many of you probably do have a trust, and that's huge. And make sure your trust is up to date if you do have one, and make sure that it's you got your stuff in it. We can talk more about that as well. It's something that the Lawyer in Blue Jeans group will do for free and check you out if you have an older trust. But the bottom line is the Congress has set it up. If you want to talk rigged, and we don't do politics, you know that. In 25 years on the air and 45 years in law, have not touched politics. There's plenty of other guys that do that, and women. I don't do that. But I will tell you, Congress set this up, and they're using it, and many of you and I are using it now as well because we're allowed to. So here's the deal. Before I go and have Justin tell you a little bit about probate, I want you to understand why. The reality is that living trusts, like I said, came from abroad, and the government's not going to go out of their way to tell you about it with all the new stuff. You're going to hear more and more about this as we progress to the next half hour or so. And that is that you're never going to hear a public service announcement saying, other than, oh yeah, get a flu vaccine, maybe soon a COVID vaccine, all right, sponsored by the U.S. government. Or, stop smoking because it causes cancer, sponsored by the U.S. government. I keep waiting for them to say something like this on TV. Get a living trust, avoid probate, sponsored by the U.S. government. No way, no how, ain't gonna happen. Nope, that's just not the deal. Is it a conspiracy? No, I don't believe it is. But is it something that you have the right to be a senator or a congressperson like they do, and they have trust? I guarantee you all your congresspeople have trust because they wrote the law. They set it up so they could take advantage, and they've allowed you to do it. You just maybe haven't got enough information to know. Once you understand it, you will know why you'd be crazy not to have a trust. So let's get into probate. That's the bad stuff, all right? I want Justin to bring that in, and I'm going to wrap this thing up after he gets done with you in a little bit, to the point that you are not going to want to drop off, all right? Stay with me for the next 40 minutes or whatever it might be, because we've got something for you that's going to just knock your socks off, and I mean that with all sincerity. So let me hand this off to Justin. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Stay with us, folks. You're going to hear more and more how this stuff is super important, especially in today's world. Justin, the baton is yours. There you go.
Yep. I even put on a glove just to make sure.
A mask.
No mask. So we're going to talk about probate. I do want to go back for one quick second to talk about capital gains. I have a real life scenario that I want to share with you about why it's so important to have your property in a trust. We had a woman who came into us and basically, wanted to get her one of her parents an estate plan, and she said that look, my parents in the hospital right now, and I need a trust to be created. I said no problem. So we created the trust, and we did everything. Everything was supposed to go to that daughter. We made sure everything was legit, and it was just it was a redoing of an old trust too. So. Essentially, that property was to go to that one child. And she was told by someone after we signed the trust that her daughter should be on as a joint tenant to make sure the property goes a little bit quicker to her daughter. And she called me after we signed the trust and the deed transferring the property into the trust. And I said, please don't do that. That's a really bad thing. That could really cost your estate a lot of money. And she listened to her friend. And then the woman passed away. I get a call from the daughter not too long afterwards saying, look, we did the trust and whatnot, but the property was transferred into joint tenancy in my name before my parent passed away. So now they're saying I owe $90,000 in capital gains. How do I get around that? And I said, well, you can't, because the property was not transferred through a trust. The only way to avoid that capital gains tax was to have the property go through the trust. And once you were put on the title and then your parent passed away, well, now there's no way to transfer it into the trust because the parent's gone. And now the daughter owes the capital gains $90,000 and couldn't get around it. So if you own property in California, especially, property appreciates in value very rapidly here in California. So the capital gains that could be owed is astronomical, especially if you have more than one property. Oh my God, having a living trust will pay for itself 100 times over sometimes. So it's a very valuable tool. But let's talk about probate and why probate's so bad. And probate, I hate to say it, folks, it's going to get worse. In the time of the COVID-19, the courts have been closed. It's going to get worse than what you're going to see on these slides. So it is the court. It's expensive. It's red tape. It's bureaucracy. It's a lack of control. That's what it really comes down to, is a lack of control over your own assets and who gets them. Because if you pass away intestate, which means no trust, no will, the court is in complete control. That's super probate. If you were to pass away with a will, you have a little bit of control, but it still goes through the probate court. So why would you even want that? While in the probate court, we need to validate the will. And like I said, it does control every element of the distribution. Your debts need to be paid, but it is the only legal way to change title to property. Let me say that again. It is the only legal way to change title to property with a probate order or with a living trust. So there's two ways to do it. One of them takes a very long time, and one you don't have as much control or any control, whereas the other can be done in a very short amount of time, which we're going to get to in just a second here. So the good news is anyone who has a living trust out there, you do not pay for probate. The bad news is everyone else, you're paying for probate. So a recent study from AARP came out and said 72% of Americans do not have a living trust, which means 72% of San Diegans, presumably, are going to go through the probate court. And we're going to talk about why that's so bad, because the people who go through probate are going to be paying their fees. Their estate will pay their fees based on the gross value of your estate. The gross value of your estate. How crazy is that to think about, that you're not paying on the net equity? So if you own a property that's $600,000 in gross, that's the value of it, and you owe $600,000, the courts are going to base your fees on $600,000, not zero, which is what your equity is. You don't actually have any money in that property, which isn't very fair. It's kind of gross, actually. But the government is nice in that they will allow you to pay 9 months in cash, right? You have up to 9 months to pay. And what happens if you don't pay? A little penalty if you're late, right? That's typical. But what is that penalty? 5% per month, 60% per year. How gross is that? What's more gross, paying on the gross value of your estate or the 5% per month? It's not very fair, too, because we're incentivized to buy property. We have so many tax breaks, and it's the American dream and whatnot. And then they come out with something like this because, as was mentioned before, the government's not telling you about trusts. They're not saying, hey, when you buy a property, you should have a trust in order to avoid this stuff. They don't care. They don't. The reason why is there's a lot of money involved in it, too. So that's a part of the bad parts of probate. That's part one. There's more. Probate takes time. And I do need to update these slides for the COVID-19 pandemic because it's going to get worse than what you're going to see here. So all your assets are frozen during this time period. Your kids can't touch anything. If you were to pass away, your kids can't touch any of your assets until the court says so. And that's going to take a very long time to do. Everything gets frozen, bank accounts, property, everything, right? And you do need a probate order to release the assets in order for anyone to touch anything. And I'm going to talk about this for a second here. And we're also going to talk about why it takes so long. We had a probate up in Riverside County where someone passed away and their child, the firstborn, was the executor. Okay, pretty typical. And the executor, right before the property was about to sell from the first probate, from the parents' probate, died right before the house is going to close. Now we don't have anyone who can close on the house. So they had to pull out of that deal and they couldn't sell the house. We tried to get another person appointed, the only other child, the only other possible executor. That took 9 months to get them appointed. 9 months to get that probate order, to get them to be on so basically they can sell the house. And the house went into disarray and the house was broken into and a whole bunch of other bad things happened, but there's no control. The court is in complete control at that point. There's nothing we can do. So it's a pretty bad system in the sense that we're hamstrung by the courts. And I don't know if you know this, but a lot of times the government doesn't really move that fast. You've been to the DMV. And speaking of the DMV, a lot of people ask me, how long is this probate going to take? You know, because we do some probates on the side, not many. We prefer to do trusts, but we've had people say, okay, well, how long is this probate going to take? What's it going to be like? And I said, well, it's like going to the DMV for 2 years straight. And I'm going to update that to be like, it's like going to the DMV for 3 years straight. The longest probate we've seen in our office is 21 years. Think about that. Someone passes away, a new baby is born at the same time, and then that estate is finalized through probate when that newborn baby can legally drink. That's an insane thing to think about. Our average was 2 years. Our average will be more than 2 years, most definitely, because COVID-19 pushed every single thing that we had back at least 5 months, and we had no new filings, which means we're going to be completely backlogged. So we're going to average about 3 years for a probate now. So that means if you were to pass away right now, your stuff does not go to your kids, your loved ones, your family members for 3 years. And think about that. Do you really want that to be the case? I don't think most people want that. So why does it take so long? Well, in San Diego, we have 3.6 million people. How many judges do we have for probate? We have 3. For every 1.2 million people in San Diego, we have 1 judge. And remember what I said? 72% of that 3.6 million people, they're going through the probate court. That is a lot of people. And it's not just estates who didn't have a trust. There's other reasons to go to probate too. If you're incapacitated and didn't have a power of attorney or a healthcare directive, so someone can't make medical or financial decisions for you. Or what about kids? We're going to talk about that in just a second. There's a lot of reasons that people are going to end up in the probate court. But remember, there's over 3 million people that are probably going to be in there. Maybe 2.5-ish. I got to work on my math. But regardless, when you have a living trust, there is no government involvement, except for we need a death certificate. That's all we really need from the government to get working on it. It is exempt from probate, but it could be administered within a few months or a few years. Say you have a 20-year-old who hasn't really figured out what they want to do, and you want to make sure that they don't get their inheritance and just go blow it on spring break, right? Well, when spring break opens back up. You can determine what your trust says. So maybe you want them to receive a third of the inheritance at 25, a third at 30, or a third at 35. Or you could say something like, well, if you graduate from college, you can get half of your inheritance at that time and the other half at age 25. You can incentivize things like that. Now, one thing we can't do, because we get this question all the time, you can't incentivize things that are against public policy. For instance, you cannot say you only get your inheritance if you vote Democrat or Republican or something like that. That doesn't work. We've had a lot of people ask that question on both sides, and no, you cannot do that. Sorry to say. But you can incentivize going to school, or you can make sure that people are drug-free. And the most important thing about this, though, is that you are the one who gets to decide, not the courts. That's what's important. So I kind of touched on this, but what happens to our children if you were to pass away and didn't have an estate plan in place? And I'm sure a lot of people out there have minor children or even minor grandchildren. But what happens to those kids if you don't have an estate plan that says where they go? What happens? The government gets involved. CPS, the probate court that we just talked about. Remember, 3 judges? And the judge is going to be the one who decides where the child will go and not the parent. And I think we'll all agree that, yes, the judge probably has the best interest at heart, but ultimately, who's the best person to make that decision? I believe it would be the parents, right? It's an important thing to have in place, and it's something we don't like thinking about, but we've seen a lot of things in our office, and I've even seen personally. I had a friend who had a 3-year-old, and she had a brain aneurysm and died on the spot. And so luckily the other parent was there, but what happens in these sudden accidents, we need to be prepared for that. It's such an important thing to have a plan in place. And that's exactly what we're talking about, is having a plan where you take back control. So as I mentioned, it is about control, where you have the control, the government doesn't, right? But it's also a private document too. It is something that when you pass away and you go through probate, that's all public record. When you pass away with the living trust, no one gets to know what is in your trust except for the people that you want. But a trust is revocable as well. It can be changed. And you might hear, well, do I need a revocable or irrevocable trust? Well, you probably just want a revocable trust because you want to be able to change your trust. An irrevocable trust is one that you can never change. And so say you have a spouse and 2 kids, and then one of your kids gets married, and you already set up your trust 5 years before, and this new son-in-law starts, nudging you, saying, "Hey, how about you loan me $50,000 for my new Bitcoin mining business," or some crazy thing like that? Well, you probably want to disinherit that person or protect your estate from something like that. Like I said, though, you can change your trust. So if you have someone who has special needs, you can add special needs provisions or drug language to make sure that they're not addicted to drugs or alcohol before they receive any inheritance. So things change in our lives. We need to be able to change our trust accordingly, or our estate plan accordingly. So how do you get it done? Well, what are your options, really? There's the wrong way and the right way. That's the way we look at it. The wrong way would be the boilerplate way, the one size fits all. It's not necessarily what you want, because, you know, some people we've had trust brought into our office that someone downloaded from Google and just erased someone's name. That's going to go to probate, and it's probably not going to work. You don't want the boilerplate, because everyone's a little bit different. Every estate plan, every person is a little bit different, because we aren't identical. So you need something that's going to be customized and specifically tailored to your family's needs. As I mentioned, what if you have someone who has special needs in your family? Well, we don't want them to be disqualified from the benefits that they're receiving from the government. So we need to add a special needs provision that says exactly that. We need to shelter those assets. We need to protect certain people. We need to make sure that some kids don't get their inheritance until they're of mature age. You get to decide, and that's the important part when you have a customized trust. When you have a boilerplate trust, you're not getting that, pure and simple. And you're not getting that feedback as well, too. Like I said, though, all trusts are not alike. There are specific rules of the probate code that need to be implemented, and we're going to talk about why that's really important in just a minute here. But most attorneys don't create trusts. And I've seen a lot of trusts come through our office where it might be a tax attorney or a divorce attorney. And they say, oh, I got a few minutes, I'll create a trust for you. It's not too bad. It is not something that's required in law school. And so if you look up a couple of slides there, specific rules of the probate code must be implemented. Those rules are changing all the time. New cases come out weekly where we are updating our documents, updating our knowledge of estate planning to make sure that your trust is robust and it has all the new information that needs to be in there. Because the worst part about this too is that if you have one of these divorce attorneys create a trust for you, or someone or Craigslist paralegal, we've seen those too, and wow, it's really dangerous. The worst part about that is that you won't know if it works until you're already dead, and then it's too late. And what do? Can you sue your kids sue the Craigslist paralegal? No, they don't have malpractice insurance, because you know what they're doing? They're practicing law without a license. So you need to have someone who creates an estate plan, who knows exactly what to do, knows the proper language and how it's supposed to be worded, especially with the specific rules that need to be there. Because it is so important to know that, like I said, you won't know until it's too late, and then it's too late. And we've had that plenty of times where a child has brought in their parents' trust that was created on LegalZoom or was created with a paralegal, and we're going to talk about LegalZoom in a second here. And it's unfortunate that we have to tell them sometimes, hey, look, I'm sorry, but you know, this just isn't going to work. And unfortunately, we have to go through probate. So speaking of LegalZoom, I'm actually going to bring in the lawyer in blue jeans back in to talk about this. I'm sorry to bring everyone down with the bad, kind of negative probate stuff, but that's exactly what you're facing unless you have something in place. And I need you to know how bad it actually is and how bad it's going to be, especially with the corona. Like I said, we're looking at about 3 years for an average probate, I'd say. And we don't even know what it's going to look like. It might be longer. I'm just kind of theorizing. It's looking pretty bad though. So, but you can exempt yourself from that. So we're going to get back into living trust and estate planning and how to do that too. So let you take back over.
All right. Don't you like the way we shift our chairs? Now we get in the bread and butter, guys. This is time not to drop off. We got a ton of people watching. I can see that. I'm so glad. I'm not used to this. We've done seminars, thousands of seminars, tens of thousands, if not more, people coming live. We can't do that now, right? At least for a while. So this is going to have to do, and it will, because you need to know more than ever in today's world that your family is going to be okay. That's the bottom line. Your family needs to be okay. Now, LegalZoom is a very high-end marketing. When I say high-end, I mean they spend a lot of money on marketing, right? LegalZoom, let me put it this way. I am not against LegalZoom. I wrote a bunch of books on how to do your own things in law. I'm a believer in getting lawyers out of your life when you can. I truly am. I promise you. I wrote the books on it. The one book I won't write is How to Do Your Own Living Trust. It's the heart and soul of your family. This is the deal. This is the biggest deal in law that you can really know about and take advantage of. Now, here's the thing. So when I talk about LegalZoom, I don't want you to think I'm knocking them. I do think that there are certain things in LegalZoom that will really help you and save you money, like name changes, things like that. I'm okay with that. But you have to know a few facts. Facts first, okay? Number one, LegalZoom is not a law firm, period. practicing law without a license is against the law. And number two, my understanding is there's some cases going on now, some legal cases, class action cases against LegalZoom right now. Number two, I am a lawyer. Justin is a lawyer. The Lawyer in Blue Jeans group, obviously we have lawyers there. We're a smaller, medium-sized group. We're not a huge, where you fall into elevators and run into people. I mean, we don't do that. We want our clients to feel comfortable. But we are authorized to practice law in the state of California. LegalZoom, and we can't do your trust if you live outside of California unless you have some connection in California, like property or something like that. LegalZoom attempts to do property or living trust in every state of the union. That's problematic, big time. So we have some issues with the way LegalZoom works. Yeah, they're inexpensive, less than $1,000, and that's cheap, by the way, in law. Living trust can get pretty expensive. $1,000 is cheap, is inexpensive. I'll use the word cheap as well because it's pretty hard to customize a living trust in all 50 states. LegalZoom tries to do that. Most important, LegalZoom tells you not to use them. This is so important. LegalZoom tells you, they go out of their way to say, don't use us, and don't just take my word for it, take theirs. If you go and check their disclaimer, there's a part of the disclaimer, and a lengthy disclaimer that they have, that says the following, and some of it might be blocked by the picture, but I'll do my best to make sure you hear it and see it. The information provided in this site is not legal advice. This is LegalZoom's language, but general information on legal issues commonly encountered. LegalZoom is not a law firm, thank you very much, and is not a substitute for an attorney or law firm. Communications between you and LegalZoom are protected by their policy that they wrote and they made up, not the one that lawyers like us have to comply with in the state of California, which is called work product or attorney-client privilege. We protect your rights and confidentiality. LegalZoom is not necessarily involved in that. We cannot distribute your information to anybody else. I've been told that LegalZoom has been accused of that. Alleged. I'll use the alleged, okay? And last but not least, look at that last sentence. LegalZoom cannot provide legal advice and can only provide self-help services at your specific direction. You want to go the cheap way? You want to do the shortcut? They just told you not to do it. LegalZoom cannot provide legal advice and can only provide self-help services at your direction. What does that tell you? You are the lawyer and they are the typing service. So let's say you disregard everything that Justin and I talk about tonight, but you accept for the fact you need protection, which you do. We all do. Everybody should have one, all right? But you do it the cheap way, all right? You pay $1,000 to LegalZoom. You do it online. You put your credit card in, and then they come back with questions. And the first question might be and is, what kind of trust would you like? And they give you some examples, and you check a box. Do you want a single trust, a Mary trust, an AB trust, an ABC trust, a Q-tip trust, or a Q-dot trust, and there's more. Now, come on, folks. What are you going to pick? Oh, call them. All right, give them a call. LegalZoom, you just gave me a bunch of choices. I don't know what kind of trust I should have. You tell me. Oh, I can't because LegalZoom cannot provide legal advice and can only provide self-help services at your specific direction. You tell me, we'll do it. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you'll probably lose. Q-dot trust, you better be a non-citizen. I mean, there's so many varieties. So the point is many-fold, but the most important part is it's not just the paperwork. It's not just the book and the trust and all the stuff you get with it. It's crucial that's done right, but it's also the feedback. You need an attorney who knows what they're doing to tell you and give you options that apply to you. LegalZoom cannot and will not do that. I hope they don't do that because that's totally against the law. And they tell you in the disclaimer not to do that anyway. So, we all like to save money. I mean, I get it. In today's world, yeah, we got to be careful. We got two issues going on, don't we? We're a little worried about money and we're a lot worried about getting sick. All right. And some people, unfortunately, about 100,000 now have died, and there'll be more. And I don't want to play on that. I'm just showing you that life is valuable. It's so important that we live for the moment, but we also live for our families and take care of them when we can. If we turn our back to them, Is that really the right and respectful way to take care of our family? I don't think so, personally. That's your call, though. So LegalZoom, although in some ways can do good things, trusts are not the way to go with LegalZoom, even if it only costs you $1,000. Because guess what? Trusts are not cheap. Living trusts by good attorneys in general can cost you up to $8,000. Now, don't turn off your computer. It doesn't mean you're going to pay $8,000. We have something that's going to blow you away. So you better hang in there for the next 10 minutes or so, because I'm going to show you something that's pretty cool. But the reality is, good estate planning lawyers are not inexpensive, but you're going to get, generally, from a good lawyer, a quality document that will work, not something that may not work and then you're gone. Susie Orman, you may have heard of her. She's not a lawyer. She was on CNN with me. She and I were sitting in the waiting room. It's called the green room. They put powder on your face, and she does some things that I don't agree with. I will tell you that right now. But she also has common sense. And she made a statement. It's in her book, I believe, as well. But she, a quote, and I told her I'd like to quote her, and she said, okay, that the following: if you own a home in a state like California, you'd be crazy not to have a living trust. Crazy. Why? Because we talked to you about the law. You own a home, you're going to be probated. Sooner or later, you're going to be probated, and you don't want to do that. Your estate will not thank you for that. They will spend a ton of money, and guess who wins? The lawyers. Yes, we get paid first in probate, as Justin probably told you. And the bottom line is we get a ton more money than we'd ever get in a living trust because the judge sets the fees. It's statutory. So that's what Susie said. I agree with her 100% on that one. And maybe the most important aspect is the deal of incapacity. What's the chances of you becoming incapacitated before you die? Well, 1 out of 2 people are incapacitated before we die in today's world. So good news is we're living longer. The bad news is we're living longer. And do you want control? Because if you think you can be Archie Bunker and march into that hospital and talk to the doctor and say, my wife does not want to be on life support, even though she's not conscious, take her off. The doctor will say, thank you for your opinion. No, I won't, unless you give me one of 2 things. Give me a court order by a probate judge. Good luck. It's about $10,000 to get into court, take you forever. And, you have to go through that machinations, or bring your living trust in with your advanced healthcare directive and bingo, done. So you have control with a living trust while you are alive, not just while you're dead. So the reality is Congress has thought of so much that they have jumped on the wagon. Everyone has it. They all have one. And many, many, many people are now doing it now, not because of the COVID crisis, but because we care about who gets our stuff, and our family, our friends, our dogs, our pets, our charities. They can all be taken care of specifically because you're not restricted at all. This is your baby. You can change it, as Justin said. This is a real deal. And I am so passionate about it, even in times like this where, we're stuck at home and have to deal with all this stuff. It's sad, but we'll get through it. We will get through it. It's a matter of, do we get through it? Because ultimately, if, most of us aren't going to die of COVID, but we're going to die. And I know it sounds sad, and I'm sorry, but the reality is, let's take care of one another. Let's make sure if we have the ability, we can take care of that. So what are the advantages of having a trust? Well, guess what? There's no court. You don't go to probate court unless you want to go watch somebody else, disintegrate and have their estates go crazy. There's no court. There's no probate fees. Remember, gross versus net? The government just puts the screws to you if you have to go through probate, but I'm not going through probate, and a lot of you out there that have a trust will not as well. And what I mean by that is have a trust. Now, if you get a trust and you get one right, you will not be probated, period. End of discussion. No attorney representation. You don't want to have us babysit you for 3, 4, 5 years, do you? Why? And we're the ones that are going to make big money out of your estate? No, you keep it for yourself. Keep it for your kids. There's no attorney representation. Again, time. The backlog is even more now. And the reality is the courts have been very, very little used, and the backlog is going to get way bigger than even 3 or 4 years. But with a living trust, you don't have any backlog. You don't need the court. You're the court. You're in charge. And it works. This is the real deal. avoids multiple probates. What do government, what do Congress people have? They have a lot of stuff, right? But they have homes. They have more than one, usually 2, 3, 4 homes, because they go to their district. They have a home or a condo in Washington. They have a vacation home, maybe in Florida. They set up the deal where you look, if you have a house, no matter where you own that home, you must be probated in that state that you have that home. 50 different pieces of property, 50 probates, 50 different lawyers. Have fun with that. But what did Congress say? Oh, we have lots of homes. We don't want to do that. I don't want 4 probates. So they wrote in the law that it avoids all probates everywhere. You can have 50 pieces of property and 50 different states, and you'll have 0 probates anywhere. Thank you, Congress. You did a good job. We are a part of that now. We want in, and all you got to do is do it, and you'll be in. They can't stop us. They wrote the law. We can be part of it. Prevents court control upon incapacity. 1 out of every 2 people die or become incapacitated before we die. Now you have control on how you want things to be taken care of. Life support, no life support, it's your call. But you get to choose, not the government. My gosh. Privacy, you have full privacy. When you have a trust, you have 0 privacy. When you go to probate, you're everybody's business. Your ex-spouse can know about it. Your next door neighbor, your ex-business partner, everybody can know everything you own. And well, with a living trust, nobody gets to know unless they're in the trust. Then they get to know, because that's fair. Reduces contest by heirs. You want to see World War III break out? Let the kids fight, or the kids your kids that marry other, their spouses, and they start pushing, like, Johnny got more than you did. Let's fight him. In probate, super easy to do. In trust, no, not easy at all. Very difficult to contest a trust. Control for minors. You got kids who have kids. You need a trust. They need a trust. My gosh. Why would you want the government to be in charge of who your grandchildren or your minor children go to? Would you really want that? I'm not knocking judges. I know many judges, and a lot of them are really good, and they try hard. But who's best to be the parent? You or the judge? You know that. They're not hard to maintain, despite what some people might scare you with and say, oh my gosh, you need to get a trust, and I'm a lawyer and I can do this, and every year you come in and pay me $800 and I'll update it for, whatever you need. No, run. You don't need that. Every 3 or 4 years, you come in, we take a look at the trust, we see if we need to update it because it needs to stay with the times, like an oil change, and we don't charge you to come in and check it out. No, we don't play that game where you get an $800 annuity. I could be in Tahiti right now if we did it that way. I'm here in San Diego, all right here with you guys. Asset management, it's all here, and it's not under your pillow or under the bed. You got everything in that book, and there's no estate tax, there's no inheritance tax, and there's no capital gains tax. My gosh, what else can you put in this that is so great? I mean, the kitchen sink is in there, and Congress did that. I'm not saying send a thank you letter to them. I'm saying protect your family. You have the ability to do it, and I'm about to tell you how. All right, and you can do it without spending $8,000. Now, if you know a good attorney and they charge you $6,000 to $8,000 and you feel comfortable with that attorney, go there. It's better than not doing anything and get it done right. All right, I'm talking a estate plan lawyer, not a family law lawyer. Get somebody who knows what they're doing, and if you guys spend a few more bucks because you really feel comfortable with them, I have no problem with that. I am going to tell you something that we do, and we've been around a long time. This is something I just have a passion about, that I'm going to try to make it pretty attractive to you, where if you decide to do it right now, I am going to put together a package that you just don't drop now. You don't want to drop off this program because you're going to see something that's pretty cool. Peace of mind, you can't put a money value on that, can you? I mean, wouldn't it be nice, especially in today's world, but even in regular times, you take a cruise, you come back with a doctor's appointment that didn't go well, you want to know your family's taken care of, and you can't go backwards, you can't go retroactive. So more than ever, it's an exclamation point in today's time, because look, people are worried. I don't know about you guys, I don't want that doggone disease. I'm certainly in a vulnerable time, and I've got family and I got kids. My daughter is pregnant. She's going to have a baby next month. She's scared to death. This is not something you take lightly. All right. So what are the downsides? Why shouldn't you get a trust? Well, I've done this a long time, and I can't find a good legal reason to tell you, but I will tell you what one of my attendees at a seminar several years ago said, and I thought it was interesting. And he goes this. He said, if you hate your family and you want revenge, your kids or whatever, and you want to get revenge, don't get a trust, make them go through probate, and you'll get ultimate revenge because they'll go through heck. You know what? So it's more tongue-in-cheek, but the reality is, yeah, if you do have that kind of emotion, don't get a trust. Just put them to shame. I mean, they'll have no fun in probate. But there are reasons people don't get trust. Number one is, oh, I'm not Bill Gates. I don't have billions of dollars. I only have a house. You're going to probate. Oh, I don't have a house, but I have $170,000. You're going to probate. Or no, I don't even have either one, but I got minor children. You're going to probate. Folks, most of you are going to go to probate unless you do something about it. This is something that you have to do. Inertia, many of you have thought about this. I know that, all right? I know that. And it's easy to put it off because we don't want to think about dying, but what better time than now to think about, hey, living. Don't think about dying, think about living. Think about the people that are alive, and do you want to shoot them to probate, or do you want to take care of them on your terms, not the government's terms? It's self-answering, all right? So it's easy to say, one of these days I'll get one. No, you won't. Do it. Make a commitment, whether it be to us, and I'm going to give you something that you're going to really love, or somebody you feel comfortable with. Okay, we're not the only lawyers in town. There are good lawyers. We have a reputation that we think is really wonderful, and we've earned it, and we will give you something that really works for you. And yeah, the cost is not cheap. I mean, for good estate planning lawyers, without shortcutting and taking a chance, that's pretty much what you can expect. That $5,500, $8,500, that's pretty much the going rate out there for good quality lawyers to do a complete estate plan. Not just one trust, but all kinds of documents that come with it. Now, let me give you some perspective as we wind up, and we're coming to a crescendo. So stay with us on this because we're about done, and we're about to give you the big reveal. If somebody had a net worth of $600,000 and includes a house with a mortgage of $300,000, 2 cars with a balance of $20,000, credit cards, bills, $30,000, would you agree with me that's not a rich estate? No, they're doing okay, but they're not rich. But you know what their probate fees could be because they didn't have a trust? It could easily be $50,000 or more. Have fun with that, folks. So when you think about $4,000, even if you can find one, $8,500, it's not that much money. But the other part I want you to understand is this: most of you are insured, I hope. And if you have car insurance, homeowners, umbrella policy, life insurance, you'd probably agree with me that we're paying way too much money for something we'll probably never use. In fact, 70% of people who have insurance never touch the money, all right? But you have to have insurance in today's world because everybody gets sued for everything, right? It's just the way lawyers work. So the bottom line is this: when you have insurance, there's a good chance you'll never use it. I'm not saying stop your insurance. Get insurance. You should have it. But compare that with a living trust that you pay one time, and that 100% of us will use. I mean, that's perspective, folks. You will use it, and your family will thank you for it, even if you're gone. So we at the Lawyer and Blue Jeans Group, we have it's a very small to medium-sized law firm. We have about 9 or so employees total. It's a firm that is there for you. And I took so much pride and take so much pride in evolving this law practice, and Justin is extremely involved in it now, obviously, that we have over the years built the reputation that you can trust us. Now, talk is cheap. We've got to perform, and we do, and we will, but that again is cheap. You got to have some trust to do that. So what do? We do a full estate plan. I'm talking customized revocable living trust. That's about 35, 40 pages long. That is everything. And we go over every single part of it. And the attorneys are involved in every single event with you as well. We don't pawn you off to an administrator. All right. Paralegals assist us in typing the stuff because they type faster than we do. But we are involved quarterbacking every part of the way. You get pour over wills. Those are special wills that go with the trust. You need those. You must have them. They're safety valves. And again, we don't have time to go into all detail tonight, but we will as we see you, should you decide to go forward and protect your family. Durable power attorney for finance, same thing. If you're incapacitated, that gives the other person the ability to sign checks and take care of your finances. And of course, the Advanced Healthcare Directive, huge. These are not 2-page documents, folks. These are the real deal. And they're about 12 pages or so. And it's not like Sharp or Kaiser where you have 1 page and it says, kill me now. You know, that box can be checked, or leave me on life support no matter how long it takes and how much money it costs. Much more customized. And that's what we do, is everything is customized as we go forward. That's how we operate at the Lawyer and Blue Jeans Group. Now, we do it different real quickly, and we're about to hit the crescendo mark, all right? You got about 30 seconds to really see the numbers now. Unlimited appointments with attorneys and staff. Check out other law firms and see if you get that. It's free. Unlimited appointments with attorneys and staff. There's no hourly rates. When you call, you email, you mail us, you come in, you smoke signal us. It's all included. There's no hourly rates. We don't nickel and dime you that way. And that's what too many attorneys do. That's what most attorneys do. That's what I used to do when I was doing other law way back when. It also includes 2 properties recorded with the recorder's office. We will take them down and record those for you. There's no charge for that. You just pay the recorder's fee, which is around 20 bucks or so. If you have more than 2 properties, we do have to charge you. And being upfront with you, I think it's about 200 bucks a property over 2. But we want to include the first 2 on us, and that's just something that we do different. We are a unique law firm, and I'm proud of it, because I don't want to be cast in that jungle of lawyers the way everybody does it, because that's the way they've always done it, because it just messes up the clients. Notaries included, everything from start to finish. We don't nickel and dime. We don't play that game. Everything, please hear me all, because most people say, is everything really included? Everything included. You need a special needs provision? We'll include it. No cost. You need to talk more and have more appointments? No cost. That's how we do things. We like